Today, I want to talk about leadership burnout. This is so real. The struggle is real. This is something that I experienced, at least for the first time, able to acknowledge I experienced this medically. I remember it was like 2013, I believe. And I just didn't know how to shut it off. I was going nonstop. I was wide and shallow. I had no disciplines, rhythms, boundaries. I said yes to about everything. I loved what I did, but it is possible to love what you do and still burn out. It's a bit ironic. It's this weird tension, but it's the reality of the situation. Is you can love what you do yet burn out. I ran myself straight to the hospital a couple of different times. Essentially, I wasn't taking care of my health. Like I said, I just said yes to everything. I was consistently fighting for my well-being, for a good mental state. My mental health was probably declining, and that was before mental health, the conversation really began. But I remember I have this picture. I'm in the hospital. I'm being pumped with IVs, because I'm sick. I'm dehydrated, and it was simply because I allowed burnout to affect so many different areas of my life. I was exhausted. Again, it completely apprehended my rhythms, my disciplines, my routines. I let myself go for the sake of the mission, but I essentially, just had to wave the white flag because I was experiencing burnout. And I'm going to talk today about what burnout is, how we can avoid it, what are some things to do if you are experiencing burnout, or if you ever come face to face with the reality of burnout. And it's one of those things that it if you're there. If you're not really sure, you probably aren't burnt out, but it's something that I even went through with my counselor last year. So let's jump into this. Okay, what is burnout? Burnout actually became an official diagnosis as of May 2019. It became a real thing. Doctors were diagnosing patients as burnt out. I think it's interesting. By definition, it is feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, and not just like you're a little tired. That's different. If you're just tired or like fatigued, that's natural. You should have poured yourself out throughout the day and you sleep well at night because you're tired of the service that you just performed throughout the day. But this is actual exhaustion, to where things aren't connecting right in your mind. Your processing system is misfiring. I was telling Aaliyah and my wife that, I think I'm about 2 to 3 weeks late for having a vacation, and I just got back last night from vacation because things weren't firing right in my mind. And so I was experiencing certain symptoms, certain signs of burnout. And I guarantee you, if I went to my counselor and or my doctor, they would have probably said I was experiencing burnout. Okay, so feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job. So when you start really checking out, even like for me, let's just say a few weeks ago, you probably wouldn't be able to tell that I was checking out, and I wasn't trying to check out. It was just naturally happening. And the great travesty is when you can put on, and just kind of power through it, but you almost fool yourself. It's easy to, not fool's not the right word, but it's easy to not allow other people to notice, because you know how to put on, how to perform well. and there's that scripture. I'm a Christian, so I love the Bible. There's that scripture that says, put your hand to the plow and don't look back. Otherwise, you're not fit for the ministry. And, but some old schoolers use that as saying that if you ever take a break, or if you ever have, actual disciplines, and if you are not constantly saying yes to every single opportunity, then, you're not fit for the ministry. I've been told that before. And that's just absolutely absurd. That's why you've got a lot of people, only lasting a couple decades in certain career paths, or much, much less. The average tenure of a pastor nowadays is 4 to 6 months. It's because they don't have certain boundaries in their life and disciplines and rhythms. They get in it. They say yes to everything. They're a yes man. They get burnt out. And then they completely just eventually lose heart and passion for that thing. But my point is, it's one thing to outperform someone's perception of you, and it's another thing to fool yourself when you just keep your head down and keep going, and the grace has been lifted and you need to go on vacation or have some other disciplines we're going to talk about here in a minute. And then you just keep going, and then you realize, I can't connect things in my mind. I'm starting to experience now, anxieties and maybe some symptoms of depression, and things just start going down. You begin to, not take care of yourself physically, and anyways, etc. So, but the second point here is burnout is increased mental distance from one's job. So when you're constantly negative, you're cynical, you begin checking out, you're distant from your job, you might be experiencing signs of burnout. You probably need a nap. Hello. Thirdly, burnout, reduced professional effectiveness. Okay, so when you're not producing at the level you used to produce, and it's consistent. I'm not saying you've had a bad week. That's different. Okay, some weeks I perform very highly. Other weeks I don't perform as high. But so I'm not going to sit back after a week of, lower tiered, lower barred performance and say, oh, I'm burnt out. No, I just didn't perform as well, and that's okay. But if it's consistent, if it's now habitual, or if it's a rhythm, that's different. Okay, you might be experiencing signs of burnout. Okay. Burnout, the picture I like to see of burnout is a candle wick right here, a candle wick versus a fire. Okay. A candle wick, if I were to light it on the other side of the wick, if I were to remove this wick, light it on the other side, burnout is essentially you're burning on both ends. And it's only a matter of time, right, before it burns out. Okay. You're burning on both ends. It's essentially suffocation. That's what burnout is. But I like to look at my life, and we ought to look at our lives, our passion, performance, etc., like a fire that you stoke, that you fuel. You have certain rhythms, you have order, you have routines, you have disciplines. You are intentional on stoking the fire. You can't create more wick, but you can create more fire, right? So you need to, and we need to make sure that we are stoking our lives, fueling, our lives, fanning the flame, versus burning at both ends. Okay, I know what both of these is like, and the fire, the latter, is much better. Okay, burnout. You can burn out if you let tasks, people, demand, and or expectations suffocate us. In other words, everything else is telling you what to do, how to live, what moves to make. Then that just, you cannot consistently just say yes and do everything. And watch this, just because it seems urgent to someone else does not mean that it always needs to be a priority to you. and you don't need to lay down. You don't. Now there are times to say yes and we go for it, and there are just times that we need to be a bit compliant and to do it. But there are times for you to say no, or times for you to say, BRB, or times for you to say, hang on just a little bit. I need some time on this. If, for example, if Leah consistently just always said yes every single day of the week, nonstop, took no rest days, then eventually I can't expect anything more. I can't expect anything of her, than burnout. And there was a season to where, Leah was doing internship, and we have an accountability form that we fill out each week. And one of the questions to ask is, are you taking a day of rest? But it was a bit hypocritical of me, because what I didn't realize that I was doing is that I was also texting her most days, for different items in regards to our company. And so I was expecting her to take a day of rest. But on the other side, I just wasn't thinking. And so now me, as, the quote unquote boss, yes, I need to probably be more aware of her off days, but we also talked, and on the other side, she has the full right and the ability to not respond on certain days because she has boundaries. I don't own her. Right? She has her own life to live, and she can say, this wait, etc. And she probably knows what items need to wait. My point is, we don't have to let other people, what seems urgent to somebody else, just because it seems urgent to them doesn't mean that it has to be important to you. Okay. All right, let's keep moving through this. Burnout. It is possible to love what you do and burn out. Yes, it is. I know it because I've done it and I do it. Okay. I love what I do, but you can absolutely burn out. You might be on the road to burnout if every day is a bad day. That's what it seemed like not too long ago. It seemed like I would get home and be like, man, today it was a rough day, where I didn't feel fulfilled. You may be on the road to burnout if caring about your work or home life seems like a total waste of energy. This is so real. If you're exhausted all the time, if the majority of your day is spent on tasks that you find mind-numbingly dull or overwhelming, if everything you do is mind-numbing or overwhelming, if what used to be little, there's somebody I can think of right now, what should take them 15 minutes of mediocre effort absolutely crushes them, and it takes them 3 weeks to execute because they are completely burnt out. And it's unfortunate. You may be on the road to burnout if you feel like nothing you do makes a difference or is appreciated. Just because you feel that way, by the way, does not mean that it's reality. Okay. Reasons you might burn out. Number one, we neglect who we are. We neglect who we are. We're trying to be somebody else. We're not living in the complete state of ourselves. It's easy being you. You know that, right? It is easy being you. So just be yourself. There's a picture that I like to see in the Bible. David put on Saul's armor, but it was too heavy. It was too weighty. It didn't fit him right. But it was when he put on his own armor, he could go slay a giant, and I know he didn't, I don't know if he actually had, but whatever. But my point is, don't be a cheap counterfeit off-brand version of somebody else. Be fully you, be completely you. There have been seasons in my life I wasn't necessarily trying to be like somebody else, but I wasn't being me, and I kind of got lost in the busyness, and I was consistently exhausted and tired and confused and weary and fatigued because I wasn't being who Tyler was called to be. And there are a lot of people living outside of themselves, complete identity that they've been created to, to operate in. And they are experiencing burnout because of that. They're exhausted, they're fatigued, they become mentally ill. And, and mental illness, by the way, it's not this extreme negative, like you see somebody losing their mind in the middle of the street, kind of acting crazy. They might be mentally ill, yes. But mental illness can also be like something else, like something that you are completely functional within. And I've been mentally ill, and there are some people who are experiencing that you can tell that they are. Some people you can't always tell, but if things aren't connecting right and clicking right, there's something off. And this is one of the first places that I go back to when I start, experiencing whatever I'm experiencing. Okay. Am I being myself? Am I being true to who I've been created to be? Do not neglect who you truly are. We neglect our well-being. So we neglect certain disciplines and, health rhythms, and we don't have boundaries. We don't know how to get away from our phones. We don't know how to, get away, like I said, from other people's demands. We don't take care of ourselves. And so this is a big deal. We neglect our well-being. Okay. Number 3, we neglect being practical. Okay. So we don't have, like I just mentioned, any boundaries, any plan. We don't have a, what I said down here, routine. We don't have a rhythm about our lives. I'm big. 2 words you're going to hear me say a lot, probably, if you haven't already: rhythm and trajectory. Okay. Rhythm and trajectory. Rhythm is something that you obtain by basically making yourself stick to a routine. So let's look at the progression down here. If you're in a rut, if you are maybe experiencing certain, symptoms of burnout, if you're not producing, if you're not growing, however that translates, if you're in a rut, you need to build and establish a routine. This is something I do with my clients. I love doing this. I establish a routine. It should be pretty black and white, no room for negotiation, but that routine is what now evolves into rhythm. It's habitual, it's cultural, environmental. It's what you do. It's part of who you are. It's your rhythm. Rhythm feels good. Rhythm sounds good. Rhythm's nice. We all need rhythm in our lives. Okay. Rhythm is what now gives you results. Okay. So this is a progression that I love to live by and teach. One of my mentors taught me this. He says, if you're in a rut, establish a routine. That routine eventually, whether it's, the 3-day theory, the 66-day theory, whatever, that routine gives you rhythm. And you can always switch up your routine and find what works for you and find what works for you in this specific season. My rhythm just changed because I have a baby now. So my 5:30 p.m. workouts had to change to 5:30 a.m. workouts, right? But now I have a rhythm, and that rhythm is what gives me result. It's a compound effect. It's little by little. It's trajectory, okay? So be practical, be realistic. What can you do? What can you not do? If I say yes to this, I'm saying no to this. If I say no to this, I'm saying yes to this. Be aware what you're saying yes and no to. I was talking to somebody yesterday and I said, hey, because they were really upset that I didn't get back with them, etc. I said, hey, man, if I say yes to this, if I say yes to this effort, energy, and emotion, then I have to say no to family or maybe this other person. Now, unless you want to reschedule all my meetings for me, then I suggest that you are somewhat understandable and a little bit empathetic when it comes to that I'm not able to, the fact that I'm not able to say yes right now to you. If I say yes to you, I'm saying no to this. Okay. But if I say no now to you, that doesn't mean a no forever. That means just a yes later. So my point is, be realistic, be practical, get a plan for your life, be disciplined, have a routine, get the macro goal and ask, how do I accomplish that with a micro Monday? Okay, what's the little move, the little 1%, the little adjustment that I need to make today, right, to get to this big dream? Okay. Okay, I could talk about that all day. Number 4, we neglect the why, the mission at hand. Somebody said one time, if you want to quit, remember why you started. Okay. So that's just one of the reasons. This is not the complete antidote for burnout, but it is part of the solution. Okay. Remember why you started. Remember the why, the mission at hand. Okay. Burnout. If I want to quit, if I want to quit the ministry, I need to remember why I started outside of God called me to. Okay. People are lost and dying, going to hell. They don't know Jesus loves them. And they think that there's a God who holds grudges and there's no hope. And it's like, no, that's why I started, because I'm going to tell people that what he did for me, he can do the same for them, etc. So do not neglect the why you started. This is why it's important to have certain, things maybe around in your line of sight that remind you of why. I got pictures and, and thank you stuff, thank you letters from people and, things around me that just remind me when I'm feeling maybe down. Okay. Remember why. We neglect gratitude. So this is the big one that I've been trying to focus on a lot these past couple of years, is just being grateful. I think gratitude goes a long way. And when you operate from that place of, we talk a lot about this in internship, that I get to do this. I don't have to, I get to, right? Pressures of privilege. I'm grateful. So we neglect gratitude when we start to become entitled or taking things for granted. We've stepped outside of gratitude. I get to do this. This is a blessing. Okay. And being a Christian, this is a big one for me. We neglect time with the Lord. So one of my mentors told me, he says, prayer is breath. If you feel like you're suffocating, pray. That's why. So we neglect time with the Lord. So this is the spiritual element, but we need to also do the practical. Okay. It's about making the practical spiritual and the spiritual practical. It's having an ebb and flow of both. Okay. So what do we do if you are experiencing burnout? I'm almost done. Maybe take a couple days, pull back if you're able, go on a silent retreat, get away with, like for me, I get away with the Lord, and get away so I can think clearly and process thoughts and reflect and see, okay, where did I start going downhill? It's good to identify what was the beginning of the end or what feels like would be the end, right? So take a couple days, step back, get some good sleep, be practical. Good sleep goes a long way. I was watching the Olympics the other day, and there was this diver, this lady. She couldn't get past a certain roadblock in her skill set or in her points that she would get at competitions. She attributes her success. She's one of the best ones. Her success to simply getting more sleep. She kept talking about that. She says it wasn't necessarily more practice. It was just that I focused on my sleep. And I thought that was so neat. So again, pray, get a hobby. It's good to disconnect what you are always connected to. Even if you love what you do, it's good to absolutely disconnect and do something almost extremely opposite of what you do. So get a hobby, whatever that is. Now make sure it's healthy and it's not, whatever, have some boundaries with it. But also get accountability. Accountability, this this right here is a big one that I could talk about for a long time. Have somebody hold you accountable to your rhythms, etc., how you're doing, your well-being. Okay. Get counsel. So I'm not necessarily saying go to a counselor, although I have a counselor, but I also get counsel from other people. Okay. So lean into wisdom, lean into mentorship, to coaching. Delegate, pass off certain items if you're able to in your certain organization. And then manage your time more effectively. Okay, more effectively. That's the key word. And if you know me, you know I like to talk about time maximization. We talked about that in the lounge just the other month. Okay. What were some things that I did personally? I took a nap. Naps help. This past week, I took more naps than I have in the past 3 years. And it was so nice. Okay. It was so good for me. I took a nap, then I hydrated myself. As natural and as practical as that is, I simply got hydrated. I pulled back from social media for a while. I created boundaries in the schedule. I delegated certain tasks. I talked about this a minute ago. I actually honored the Sabbath. I worked out more. That's been a big one for me, is working out. I heard a pastor say the other day, he says, I don't work out for vanity. I work out for my sanity. I really like that. Okay. I became honest with how I was doing. I didn't, put on a front for myself. Like I said earlier, it's one thing to, outperform others' perceptions of you, but it's another thing to fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. Be honest with yourself. I spent more time with Jesus. And then, like I said, I got counseling. Okay. Covered a lot right there. And I know that we are probably over time. I will take a question. I know, Alexandra, you are live on the call, but I want to wrap this up for the recording's sake. I want to encourage all of you to reach out if you need to. Like I said, I understand I didn't even get into a 20th of my story, but if you need any type of counsel or coaching in this specific area, if you need to ask one-on-one, ask in a DM on Slack. If it's an open question publicly, if you are comfortable asking on the thread, ask so that it might bring value to others. And please drop a couple takeaways as well in the thread on this. But thank you so much for watching today. It's so good to have you on the lounge. And I just hope that you look at your life and say, okay, can I continue to burn at this level? Am I going to be a wick, or am I going to be like a fire? Alexandra, what's going on? How you doing?
So can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes. So just a quick question. Can these steps be contributed to, like, if you're burning out with people?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to, you got to ask yourself, why am I burning out? Am I tired of people because I'm just burnt out, period? Or am I tired of people because they are the actual source? So identifying the source, is it a lack of boundaries with that person? Is it a lack of rhythm in your own life? What is the source of burnout? What was, like I said earlier, identifying the beginning of the end, identifying where things took a turn. When was I great? And when did I start going down? And if a certain relationship came into your life and started like a leech and started just sucking life from you, maybe greater boundaries with that specific person, or a complete walking away from a relationship when it comes to actually having a relationship, But yeah, identifying the source is probably your key, but also on the other side, this is an extreme matter. This might not apply to you, but if a single person is actually burning your life out, then I would step back and say, okay, why am I giving them that much ability in my life?
That's true.
Wear me out. So where does that come from? So that's a third category that would be worth kind of diving into. Am I that insecure? Am I living and dying by their praise or their criticism? Am I getting my worth from people? Do I have a fear of man, etc.? Asking yourself, okay, is that, why is that impacting me to that level? Might not apply to you, but it might apply to somebody else who is watching this. And I might have been there before in the past. I'd have to think about it. But great question. But identifying, where you begin to take a turn, but also, do I just need to create an extreme boundary with this person? Kind of diving deep into that. Great question. Thank you for asking.